Today, I'm creating the weakest race to ever exist in the Skibidi multiverse. We are going to be going over a bunch of characters in the race, and we are picking the weakest in every category. So, by the end of this video, you'll be left with a race so weak that they'll not even last a second existing in the Skibidi multiverse. So without any further ado, let's get right into it. We are going to be starting out with the regular agent character of the race. So basically, what we are doing is getting a bunch of weaklings to make the weakest group to ever exist. For this category, there are a bunch of candidates. We have the normal clock agents. Quite basic, right? With the normal clock abilities like time grenades and all that. Or we could go with the drills, which have the basic abilities of the drills, the drill gun, and at least some melee combat skills. But ultimately, these candidates are just too overkill in this category, as we are looking for an agent so weak he can't even hurt a fly. Well, I think I just found him, and unfortunately, it's from the cameras, the POVs. I guess their sole goal is just to record the battles and events in the multiverse, so they don't possess any special weapons or skills. Like this POV in this battle that almost got mauled by a freaking toilet. You can clearly see that he had no offensive or defensive mechanism to save him from the toilet. So yeah, we should go with him. But for those of you who think that cameramen never die, well, we are removing that ability from him also. So with this, we've got a defenseless agent whose sole goal is to record like a casual camera. I think that's as weak as they can get, and we're off to a good start. So let's go over to the next member of the race, our large agent. This one would be quite tricky, as being large is already an advantage. But you can be large and still be useless and weak as hell. However, there are still some candidates that fit. We have the large clockman bouncer with the hammer that can literally pound a toilet down to dust. Quite too strong. Or let's check out the drill bouncer that rolls around like a ball and can drill holes to transport people. No, he's too good for what we're looking for. We want something weak. We could also consider the pencil, not that muscular one with a hammer, the thin, malnourished one. Yeah, that one that draws. But his abilities would disqualify him. So who would we pick then? Well, I was able to get something. Not gonna lie, the large agents in the series are quite strong and are built for combat, so it was quite difficult to find a fit. But I got something. There's a particular drill agent. You could classify him as a large agent based on the fact we saw the size difference between him and the drill woman. He's quite larger, but not as large as the drill bouncer. So yeah, he'll be a good pick based on size. But on the melee and combat, you could say I would disqualify him, but since this is the weakest we could get, let's just leave it at that. Write in the comments if you have better suggestions. However, as a race, I think they'll need technology too. But the wackiest we can find among all the technology and weapons in the multiverse. There are some candidates for this. We could say the drill guns, but they are not essentially whack in the sense that they can still deal some damage. We need something that's almost useless as a weapon. The baton from this toilet? Yeah, we could give them batons, but this would mean that they could potentially be stronger in larger numbers. And we don't want that. So we should go with the Pennywise toilet gun. But for our race members, they could have it on a smaller scale. This is quite good. However, the gun would not be able to shoot out any acid. It'll all just be a bluff for any unsuspecting opponent. But once you go on to attack them, you'll realize the guns don't actually work. Talk about real clowns. Yeah, this race is just straight up dumb. But let's move on to the next member of the race, which is an elite agent. Well, as the name suggests, this is supposed to be a powerful agent. That's what's up with the special elite title. So to get a weak elite agent would not be that easy. However, there are some candidates for the position, like the assassin drill man who, as we have seen throughout the series, is a beast of melee combat with those moves. So no, he's too strong for the position. But how about Leo, the brave one that had the guts to stand up to the camera titan? I wouldn't call it bravery, more like being dumb. So we could use some of that dumb bravery. But there's still an elite agent, quite still strong, but compared to the rest, he doesn't match up. Yeah, I guess we just have to look for the weakest of the elite agents. So let's pick the Dark Speaker, as his basic abilities are just knives on speakers to fire at enemies, with high melee combat ability. Let's remove the knives. He doesn't need that. He'll get the toy gun. Well, I'm pretty torn between choosing between him and Leo, but let's just go with Dark Speaker Man, based on the fact that we have not seen what Leo is capable of fully. So we have 3 members ready and 4 more to go to get the weakest ever. So let's pick the scientist. So basically, what a scientist does is plan strategies, develop technology, and give upgrades to Titans. So we need the opposite of this, a dumb scientist. Or not entirely dumb, but relative to the rest, he should not come close. Well, how do you know a successful scientist that's doing a great job? You see the improvements in technology. And yeah, throughout the multiverse, there have been some cool upgrades, like the Speaker Titan getting the cool guitar. You could tell the Speaker scientists were really cooking. Also, one of the best, the Clock Titan upgrades, which made him a formidable force in the multiverse. You can see the crucial roles scientists play. But have you noticed something about the TV race in the multiverse? They don't seem to actually be actively upgrading the Titans. And the agents and the technology are quite basic. So just to pick, let's go with the TV scientist. Not dumb, but just not as active. So the next member of our race would be our mommy. We need a female agent to, make the boys happy. Okay, not like that, but to carry the team. But in this case, a weak one. Well, there are some suggestions. We could go with Drill Woman. Well, her abilities, just like the drills, are just the melee combat skills and the drill gun, which we've seen is quite potent. We could choose her, but there are still some we need to check out. The Speaker Woman, her abilities are quite normal, with the basic speaker abilities and a sword, which we saw how efficiently she uses. But we don't need that. We need something lesser. Well, how about the Camera Woman? Well, she's just a female camera with a gun mounted that she uses to fire at opponents. Yeah, she's a good candidate with quite low melee. I guess we should go with her, as she doesn't have too many tricks under her sleeves. Yeah, we could work with that. Now, to make it even more spicy, we need a special character. And when I say special character, I mean the likes of the future Clockman Commander. Yeah, you can see that they are usually strong characters. We don't need that for our race, so we'll have to make our own special character from scratch. By taking the opposites of the abilities of characters in the multiverse. So we need a weapon for our character. Well, I think we should go with the pistols of Leo. We should give him the physique of William. That way, he'll be susceptible to attacks. And since he doesn't have any special abilities like illusion, he should just be as weak as we want him. For his IQ, we should just consider that of a mutant. We don't want him planning strategies or leading the agents. They should all be dumb as hell and goofy. Which other traits should I add? His speed? Well, I think he should have the speed of the regular agents. That would make opponents be able to catch up to him even faster. So yeah, we've got our ultimate weakest special character. But for the last trait, we need a Titan. A Titan so weak he'll not be able to survive a minute in the multiverse. I'll be doing this by going through a bunch of characters and choosing the worst one in all of these 6 categories. Then I'll combine all of the weak traits into one Titan to create the absolute weakest Titan to ever exist in the Skibidi multiverse. So the weakest character would clearly have the lowest IQ ever for a Titan. And trust me, there are a few of them in the series, like the Drill Titan. I know that's what came to your mind, but give bro a break. Even if he acts dumb sometimes, it doesn't mean he doesn't have some brain cells left. He can still plan and strategize. There are some even dumber Titans than the Drill Titan, like the Pennywise Titan. Bro even brought a toy gun to a fight. Who does that? And ultimately, that led to the Camera Titan using his core blast to roast him down to the skull. But even if he was a little dumb, he still showed he had some strategy in him with the hypnosis feat. Yeah, bro is just a clown, that's all, and it got him defeated. However, the worst IQ ever in the Skibidi multiverse is that of the 02 mutant. As it suggests, he's just a mutant, and it seems his brain cells got fried a little too much compared to 01. I mean, bro is just there like a sloth on drugs, slow as hell, fighting without a strategy, not able to properly evade attacks, and I doubt he can even talk, unlike 01. So yeah, he's a good pick for our Titan's IQ to make him as dumb as possible. However, for the next trait, we have our Titan's durability. For this trait, we'll try to get the most vulnerable Titan in the series, which would be a little complicated, but I think for this trait, the first candidate should be the Speaker Titan, based on the fact we saw how vulnerable he was throughout the series, especially at his base form, taking the shell bomb attacks from the SCP toilets with the explosion literally blowing him away. We also saw these same shells being casually taken by the Drill Titan, so yeah, there's a difference in durability. Even when he was upgraded, we saw how the blast from 01 was able to knock him out of the air, inflicting damage. And thereafter, when we saw him save the Pencil Woman, he was still pretty roughed up from the blast. Well, the Dom's Titans are naturally durable, but the Speaker just falls behind, and it's his greatest weakness. However, another Titan to check out is the Pencil Woman. Yeah, you heard right, the Pencil Woman. She is literally afraid of fire and doesn't dare come close to fire-based attacks. It literally burns her out, as the material she's made of is flammable, making it one of her greatest weaknesses. So, because of this, she only fights at a distance to minimize the amount of hits she could take. So yeah, this Titan is surely not on the durability side. So basically, our weak Titan would be literally made of paper. That sure is not durable. So we picked the Pencil Woman's durability. Let's move over to the next trait, which is his weapon. Well, the weapons in the Skibidi multiverse are quite overpowered. However, there are some weapons that would make you question their importance. For this trait, we are going to be using the Titan's weapons at their base forms, as the upgraded ones are just too overpowered. So, the first weapon is the base camera Titan's machine guns, the ones on his shoulder. He barely uses them based on the low output when he was getting uninfected. We saw that he used it on the Speaker Titan, and it didn't have any significant effect on him. So yeah, that is a very low damage weapon. Or how about the pre-upgraded Speaker Titan's chains? We saw when the pre-upgraded Speaker used it against the Balls mutant, and it didn't have any significant effect on it, only just a few injuries. And besides, the weapon just has a little sharp knife at the edges, so it wouldn't deal too much damage. However, do you know what is the worst weapon to ever have in the Skibidi multiverse? It's 02's saw blades. Like, what do you want to use it for against Titans like the Drill Titan or the Camera Titan? And it's not even a sharp weapon. I mean, who moves around with a blunt saw blade? A mutant, of course. Yeah, so I guess the weapon for our character would be the saw blades from 02. Let's just hope it's able to cut wood for our Titan. So far, we've chosen the IQ of 02, the durability of the Pencil Woman, and the blunt saw blades of 02. That's 3 traits, and we have 3 more to go to make this Titan the weakest you've ever seen. So, the next trait is the speed. Well, for this trait, the first candidate is the Drill Titan. I know you're thinking, but the Drill Titan is fast. Well, apart from flying, which naturally increases your speed, the Drill Titan is basically slow in movement speed based on the structure of his body and his weight. He's basically a slow Titan, so he's a good pick. Another candidate is 01, as he's quite tanky and does things slowly compared to his size. Although we can't directly determine his weight, it may be the cause of his slow movements. But when we are talking about weight, size, and being slow, there's a particular Titan, or should I say fortress, that would basically take a lot of energy to move around, the G-Man Apocalypse. Yeah, that fortress. We are going to be picking his speed. I mean, we all saw how long it took for him to literally swing his sword. So just imagine our character taking minutes to swing a sword. Yeah, that's straight up what we need. Alright, let's move on to another trait we need to make him as weak as possible. What race do you think he should be? Well, there are a few we could give to him to make him as weak as possible. We could go with the toilets, just like this guy who got slapped by the drill woman. Oh, poor toilet. But of course, he'll be much larger in size to make him a Titan. The toilets are a good pick, but what about the mutants? They seem to just be goofing around and are easily put down. Their general durability is not decent enough to call them a strong race, as they could be burnt with rays from TVs or easily injured with a sword, and they don't even possess regenerative abilities. So yeah, I think he should be a mutant, just like 02, but a very weak one. However, for a very important trait, we have the energy reserves. This Titan should have a very low energy reserve so that he literally gets tired easily. Well, there are various candidates that would be fit for this criteria. We can say the Skibidi scientist, as we saw his blasts are basically just weak-ass lasers that don't do a lot of damage to opponents. Or we could pick his counterpart, the Pennywise toilet, who uses goofy arc attacks without any significant energy. But the ideal candidate for this trait would be C-Pen, as he's basically a robot and would depend on maybe electricity or a battery. Who knows, he may even run out of charge while in battle with his weak-ass machine guns. What about the trait of size? I think he should be as small as C-Pen, so he can easily be kicked around by the Titans for fun. Yeah, this is ideally the weakest you can ever be as a Titan in the Skibidi multiverse. However, check out this video to find out what would happen if all the camera Titans invaded the Skibidi multiverse. Unique Clockman out.